Yo, welcome back to Feel Free, the only podcast that will tell you to chase your dreams and also call you out on all your bullshit, myself included. We're all in this together. If you haven't already, give us a like, subscribe, follow, and share on all your favorite listening and social media platforms. We appreciate the love and support from everyone. So, without further ado, let's get this thing going. A lot of people have been asking me when the next podcast has been coming out, so I got to take a quick second. Just tell everyone I apologize. It's been a 2-week hiatus. I did do the podcast Sin City after I got back from Vegas. Went on another vacation this past weekend too. But realistically, I'll be straight up and honest with you. I've been in a little bit of a rut. Lost my cat 2 weeks ago. It's pretty devastating to me. Obviously, I'm on the way up now, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this podcast episode today is grief. Cause damn, this shit sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's lost somebody or something, and with the definition of grief, online, it's deep sorrow, especially that is caused by someone's death. Now, I also think that grief can be like if you're in a relationship or a marriage and it ends and you lose somebody that way, right? Like it doesn't always have to be death. I think just like losing the ability to be around somebody that you love is how grief happens. But this episode is gonna mostly pertain to the loss of somebody through death. The purpose of this episode is to elaborate on the hiatus I went through. Obviously, that's going to be chronicling the ins and outs of grief, the perspective I have on death, facing this acceptance that it's happened, and trying to do our best to stay positive through it all. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and by the way, it's just me today. For most of the people out there that like listening to me when I have a guest on to speak on this stuff, this has kind of just been something that I've been brewing myself, that I've been looking forward to get off my chest. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is kind of the negatives that I've come into contact with this. Now, I've lost people already. I've lost grandmothers and friends. Unfortunately, I wasn't really around for my grandparents, the granddads, I should say. Damn, Comcast hitting me up right now telling me there's an outage. I already know there's an outage. There's no friggin' internet right now. So my grandpa, both granddads weren't around for me. So I wasn't really connected to them. The one that died when I was 5, you don't understand anything when you're 5 years old, really. My grandmother's died when a little later in life, in my 20s. So that was pretty devastating too. One died from Alzheimer's and dementia, and the other died from COVID. But realistically, we think that it wasn't really the COVID that got her. It was not being able to see her family, because it was right at the start of the pandemic, the first 2 months where the whole world was on lockdown. And I'll be honest, like my grandma Dolores, she saw my dad every day. My dad was always over there seeing her. And when they basically said, like, none of us could come and see her, I think like slowly but surely, and then she caught the virus too, so that she just couldn't hang on. So that sucked. I also had a friend die from a heroin overdose too, so that's pretty fucked up. This one though, losing my cat. He's 13 years old. I got this cat when I was 16, so he's been there through a lot of stuff that's happened in life. And it is just an animal. Obviously you can't like have conversations with an animal, so what you do get is just this unrequited, pure wonder and amazement form of love, which is why people have pets. It's why they have dogs, cats, all these other animals that we can have that have this love and affection and comfort, and we thought that he had a couple more years left in him too, because he was healthy a couple weeks ago, right? Um, his kidneys failed on him, and he had a history of kidney problems too, like UTIs and kidney stones too. So when it happened, we weren't really surprised. But it was so quick. It probably happened in like a week. He just stopped eating. When an animal stops eating, it's never a good sign. And we tried to feed him, but he just wouldn't eat. He would just throw the food up. So, and they told us, they're like, well, you can either put him down now or you can wait for him to starve himself, and that's messed up. And this will be a point that I get to later on in the podcast, but mostly my perspective on death and dying. The vet had told me that some people will literally wait until their cat is like 3 or 4 pounds to bring him in. Just a disclaimer, my cat's 11 pounds. That's like normally a pretty good weight for a cat. So these people wait for their cat to be like 3 pounds to then bring them in. Actually, I gotta wait until the end of the pod. I'm gonna get frustrated right now because it's just fucked up and selfish. But anyway, we're gonna get back to the first part of this, which is the negatives of grief. So the hiatus happened because I was just flat out depressed, and I've dealt with depression before. Nobody becomes addicted to drugs and alcohol and things like that without a little depression, right? But this is a new kind of depression. I had been obviously still going to work, I'm not just eating tubs of ice cream sitting in my bed, being all sad like that. Is mostly just like walking through the last 2 weeks of life, just kind of numb to it all, It's a little surreal. You don't really want to believe that it happened, but it did, but you got to keep going. I couldn't just like lay around like some sack of shit, I know he wouldn't have wanted that, So I had to like, still do normal human activities and whatever. I think so. Lisa had given me shit for the last 2 years because she hadn't seen me cry, right? And apparently that's not like a thing like men typically do, which is I can't say it's wrong or right. The problem with vulnerability in males in the 21st century, but nothing just like warranted me to like cry in these almost 2 years that we've been dating, So I was bawling like a motherfucker the last couple weeks, so that sucked. And another issue is when something bad happens like this, now that I've gotten rid of all of my really bad habits and substances in my life, I usually tend to like play video games, right? I usually just pick up an old video game like an old Pokemon game from 20 years ago, and I just play through that for a week or something. I haven't even wanted to play any video games. And that's, I'm just like sitting there like, what's the damn point, right? And if I'm not even wanting to play video games or watch an anime, I'm just like sitting there staring into nothingness, So that was messed up. I had to try and force myself to be active, right? Because once you stop being active, and a lot of people who are listening or will listen can attest to this, like there's a routine to staying active, healthy, and fit. And once you stop, right, it's really hard to get back into that routine, So I know when things are going wrong, I have to at least drag myself to the gym or go on a walk, or like I have to keep my body moving, for the sake of my body and soul, right? And then I'm blaming myself for what happened because you're like, oh, well, maybe if you like dumped more money into his health over the last like 6 months, maybe you would have caught, the kidney failure. And, there's all this hindsight, with this shit, grief makes you think like, oh, well, it would have been different if I did this or did that. And, I wish I had spent more time with them. And you're bargaining. That's actually one of the 5 steps of grief. I'd been looking that up for the week after. I'm like trying to see which stage of grieving I'm in, and lo and behold, I read it somewhere too, and I'm like, it's not really linear. You can kind of just go through the stages, whatever way obviously you're dealing with it due to your emotional affinity, right? So I kept looking all that shit up, and the bargaining is kind of where I spend a lot of the time. It's like, I wish things had been different. Like, I was like trying to say, if you can just take this pain away from me, like maybe I'll be a stronger person the next time that something like this happens. And that's stupid too, You can't be like looking into the future like that, because then you're just going to get even more miserable and you're going to worry about stuff, right? So these are all. And not even to mention, like, I'd been tired all the time, fucking exhausted. Granted, like, I came home from this camping trip this past weekend, and I went to bed at 9 p.m. I don't do that, all right? I just passed out, right? I don't friggin' do that. I'm a late night guy, right? So after a week of, like, going to work and dealing with grief and going on a camping trip all weekend, I think I slept for 12 hours Sunday night, so that was nice. Jeez, labeling all this stuff, it's like, granted, these are all negative things that I had been dealing with the last 2 weeks now. Yeah, so I came back from Vegas 2 weeks ago. I actually did the previous podcast on a Thursday, right? So we're here again. And these are all the negative things that I've been dealing with, right, throughout. Now, what I've been doing to try and combat this. Now, here's where it gets a little, the pros don't outweigh the cons here. So the things I've been trying to do to combat this definitely don't outweigh all the things that I just went into, like the negatives, obviously. I've been writing a lot, so that's good. Writing almost every day, and that's really good for me, because sometimes I don't write every day. Sometimes I only write like maybe a note in my phone or maybe a couple rhymes of poetry here or there. But like, I'd been writing pretty consistently over the last 2 weeks, probably because in the pits of like my emotion and turmoil and thoughts, I'm like, I have to document this, because there could be a chance that I write something that could help somebody else through what I'm going through right now. That's usually what goes through my mind when I'm like writing or when I'm going through something for the last like 10 to 15 years, right? So that's good. You have to face your feelings. I can't bottle them up, The unfortunate part is I had lost my slot with my therapist a couple months ago. I shouldn't say lost. I just decided to stop seeing him due to money. And I had been seeing him for almost coming up on 3 years. He's like my mentor through sobriety, right? And I had gotten to a point where I'm like, it is very expensive. I have a good foundation of my sobriety right now. I'd also wanted to start taking guitar lessons and hire somebody to do that. So I had said, I'm gonna take a break from the therapy so I could start doing the guitar, right? So I did that for a couple months, and then lo and behold, I'm like, oh well, I have to hire a social media person to help with the podcast thing. So now you see where the money's going. So it would have been nice to see my sober mentor through this, but he's booked solid and on vacation. So that would have been one thing I'm doing to combat this. Now, I did see my old therapist that I had seen through high school, who also sees other family members. So they hit him up for me, and I was able to go and just, vent for an hour, which is a good thing to do. People that have a misconception about therapy, especially men in therapy, the older generations will say that, oh, you're a crazy person or you're cuckoo. And I would really like somebody out there to show me a human that isn't a little crazy. I please show me, honestly, because anyone who is just so friggin' normal that they don't have something to talk about like that in a therapeutic setting, anybody that's so friggin' normal and boring like that, I don't want to be around you. I'm sorry, there's something bottled up inside of you that is just waiting to come out right now, and you're literally just judging other people for going to talk about their feelings. You know, I've had people that like scoff, roll their eyes at therapy, or like don't believe it works, or like have literally like looked down on me because of it. And, you know, I just don't associate with those people. I don't keep them in my life, you know. I have no problem with being vulnerable and saying that I seek professional help or just an unbiased opinion, you know, because you can talk to like friends and family about your problems, but it's nice to have somebody who has either been through what you're going through and doesn't know your friends and family in your whole life, so they can give you a different perspective on it, you know. So I'd like to just say to anybody out there that might be going through their own grieving process or anything remotely close to that, maybe your own problems with depression, insomnia, suicide, all this other stuff, like feeling vulnerable shouldn't be something that's looked down upon in this day and age anymore. Should never have, honestly. But that's what we're here doing in the 21st century is trying to heal the planet and the people of it. So I highly recommend, if you're going through some shit like that, definitely seek professional help. Although I had been forcing myself to be active, I was being active. So trying to find a way to still stay in motion, healthy, get the endorphins flowing, even if you can only muster up maybe going on a walk here or there. Anything to get out of your head, get out of your apartment, your room, or wherever you're at that you need to get away from those thoughts. Just do what you can, you know. Don't forget that, you know, your body needs to stay healthy and your mind as well in order to heal your soul. Now here's where the whole it rains, it pours things happen. So people that listen to this, they know there's two things I like talking about that make me really excited, and that's eating friggin' ice cream, okay, because I've given up a lot of my really bad habits, and, you know, I like ice cream, and playing basketball. Okay, those are two things that I love. Now, when this happened 2 weeks ago, we put him down on Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, and his name is Bubba, by the way. We finally get home and whatever, and Saturday and Sunday the gym is usually kind of dead, right? So those are the days that I actually like going to work on drills, work on dribbling and shooting, because the gym is pretty empty. There's not people there that are going to be like running games, right? So I like going there for an hour and a half and working on stuff with my headphones on. It's really relaxing time for me. And I get there and I shoot around for like a half hour, and I just like grab the ball and I just stand there and I'm like, fuck me. I don't even want to be here. Wow, this sucks. I'm going to go home. So I came home. I was only gone for like 45 minutes, and Lisa looked at me when I walked in the door. She goes, oh, I'm like, yep, I got nothing. I got nothing today. So I did go back on Sunday, and I was there for an hour at least, you know, so that was good. And Monday and Tuesday are usually the days at the gym where a lot of people show up, so there's really good 5-on-5 games, right? And I'm there Monday and Tuesday playing, and I usually get picked on the teams because I hustle 110%, going for rebounds and passing, setting picks, and like, you know, helping the team out in any way, playing really good defense. And so I could not dribble or shoot Monday and Tuesday. It was a mental thing. I'm fumbling the ball. I'm throwing up friggin' bricks. I can't hit shit, right? I'm playing like absolute ass. And I know the reason why, obviously. You know, it's all mental. So I play like duty Monday and Tuesday, right? Granted, like my teams are still like winning some of the games just because I'm friggin' hustling my ass off as usual. And I get there on Thursday, and I'm playing so good. Dribbling and shooting is down. I really couldn't be stopped that day. I was killing it, right? And lo and behold, I run into the lane and I roll my left ankle so friggin' bad. I wish I could put like a picture up for you guys, but I don't really do the the video thing. I'm not gonna put it on social media though, but it's pretty gross. Like, like how older people in their 70s or 80s that are like really, I can't even, you really out of shape. They don't eat well, and you look at their legs and they're all swollen at the bottom and friggin' bruised and nasty. That's how like my one ankle looks right now. It's pretty friggin' bad. So I'm devastated, right? I'm like, fuck, I gotta be out of, I can't play now for another like month or 6 weeks at least. Like my ankle's friggin' messed up. And we had this camping thing this weekend with my family and our other really good friends, and their family and their daughters and their boyfriends and my parents, children and their significant others, and it was like almost this huge Olympic type thing, right? And I had to sit on the sidelines and watch. I'm friggin' mad, because I'm pretty athletic. So, but it was still a good weekend nonetheless. Originally, I didn't even want to go, right? I was all miserable all week. I told my mom, I'm like, I don't even want to go camping. I don't even want to see anybody's smiling faces right now. I can't even deal with it. Like, oh my God, do I have to friggin' paint a smile on my face? I have no energy right now for this. And I knew it was going to be good for me to go. And, me and my sister had actually been dealing with this the most out of everybody, right? So my parents had been on a 10-day vacation too. So me and my sister had to put Bubba down and deal with all this ourselves, right? And it might have been a little more difficult for her because she lived at home too, so she had to like go around the house and like see where all of his spots were that he's not there. So that's pretty messed up. And my parents were out of town, and I was just like trying to tell my mom during the week, I'm like, I might just leave Sunday morning like early. I don't know if you guys can get me for the whole day Sunday. You can only get one day out of me because I'm pretty wrecked right now. I haven't been wrecked like this in a really long time. Honestly, my heart is just torn. And, she said that she gets it, But I went up there Friday, had a good time Friday, had a good time Saturday, and I even stayed a little bit longer on Sunday. I actually stayed with everybody until like 2 p.m. when everyone left. So it was good. It was good for me to do that and be around a bunch of people that I love. So not shying away from activities, still being around people that you love. You got to do that. That's extremely important. Relying on others is another thing that I've had to do to combat this, especially like Lisa's been there for me through it all and telling my friends and stuff like that. I'd also mentioned like going to see my old therapist. I haven't seen him in like 5 years too. So we actually had a lot to catch up on. He didn't even know like I'd been 3 years sober, or well, obviously like the whole patient doctor confidentiality thing. But it's good to catch up. It's, as I'm like saying all this, I'm like, no wonder grief sucks so much, because like as humans, like we're nothing without like the people around us, right? Like I can like sit here and toil away with my pages on pages of writing or my podcast or like being creative. Like that's kind of like a solo endeavor unless you're like in a band and you guys are playing together, but like, or you're working your job. Like there's so many like activities that require just individual attention on a human level, right? But for the health and sanity of the individual, like we need good people around us. And I guess that's why it just stings so bad when you lose someone that was a part of that circle, right? So, but like coming to that realization, I mean, that should have been for the third point where it's my perspective on death and acceptance, but I'm just like saying it now, like, you got to cherish that. You got to build those good relationships, and you have to be grateful for them, because they could be gone in the blink of an eye. Now, with that being said, like I said, relying on others to help you through this is tantamount. It's so important, right? Letting Lisa help me was tough at first, but obviously letting people in help you with like your most vulnerable positions in life is difficult, but it's very rewarding. So if you're able to shed your armor and let somebody in to help you out, I definitely give a thumbs up 100%. You should do that. Another thing that helped, I framed some pictures of my boy, so I got some pictures of my cat chilling with me. So that's nice. All of these things that I've done the last 2 weeks have definitely lessened the blow that I've taken in my heart, right? But healing is an ongoing thing, right? So you can stay active, go get yourself some friggin' ice cream, watch your favorite show, be around people that you love, maybe talk to a professional. There's so many things that you can do in order to get through some shit like this. And hell, maybe you lost your job too, right? That's grief. Maybe you lost somebody you love, or maybe you're not in a relationship anymore. Maybe you just lost something in life and you're just filled with grief, right? And you're mourning the death of your old life, right? There are things and ways that you can get through it. I promise, nothing is forever, except if you're 6 feet under the ground and you're dead. That might be forever, or not. Who the hell knows? And which brings me to my third point, which is kind of like, sorry, you hear me flipping my pages right now. I actually did an outline today. I think I said that earlier. I did an outline today. I actually outlined the friggin' podcast and wrote a bunch of stuff down. So that's a first for me. So we're going to really talk now about my perspective on death and acceptance in general, because I was looking through the 5 stages of grief, and the last one is acceptance, and that's kind of like the healing one. And I had read like, oh, just because you're in this state doesn't mean you don't have the depression or you're not still sad about it. It just means like you've accepted that it's happened, right? In a positive way, I think. I think that's what it means, You're accepting that there's really nothing you could do to change it. It's already happened. You got to get past it, but you got to keep living your life, What I guess now, one more thing I'm going to do before I get into this. Now I'm thinking about the appointment I had with my therapist. He told me there's something called survivor's guilt that I've been going through, and that's he actually mentioned it from the movie Schindler's List, which I watched in AP US History. I think people have heard of it too. It's this feeling that you could have done more, that you're like trying to feel guilty because you survived and somebody else didn't make it. So you're like trying to like punish yourself almost by feeling sad for this people, for whoever leaving, and you're still alive, right? And which is a no-brainer, because any addict knows that you're pretty good at figuring out ways to punish yourself, right? So I gotta just like realize that, I did all I could as an owner. We saved him a couple times too with surgeries that should have killed any cat. So he lived through some pretty traumatic stuff. But at the age of 13, if your cat's like 3 or 4 and you spend some money on him, like a procedure like that to like save him, like, totally worth it. They keep getting older and later in life. I don't really have disposable income, and it's fucked up to say that I had to. There was nothing I could do at that point. What am I going to put him on? Kitty dialysis and completely run all of my money out of my account, completely dry? Like, I think that's kind of selfish, on my part and his part. And I don't think he would have wanted me to do that either, So I accepted, like, I did everything I could, for the little guy. So he had a good life. You got to tell yourself that, even if it's like a person, like a human being, And with medical technology the way it is, like, we really do like whatever is friggin' possible to like keep everybody alive as long as possible, even if they're like friggin' decrepit. And this is the point that I was gonna make earlier, which was kind of frustrating me. The fact that some people selfishly let their cats or animals in general starve themselves completely. They bring them in all a shell of themselves. Like when that vet told me, like, oh, people bring them in when they're like 3 pounds to euthanize them, I'm like, that is fucked up. That's messed up, and I will not put my cat through that. That is probably some of the most disgusting shit I've ever heard in my life. The fact that some people do that. We only gave him another day. He was miserable. You know, he stopped eating and he wasn't running around. He wasn't playing like his old cat self. Because for a 13-year-old cat, my cat acted like a kitten most of the time. Still, he was full of life and stuff. And when he realized that something was wrong with him, like stopped eating, stopped running around and all that stuff, what was I going to do? Leave him there, sitting there for 2 weeks and then bring him in? That's messed up. Right? So I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to the poor guy, right? Now, and with all of this writing that I've been doing and thinking and stuff, I have thought, like, obviously on what death is, right? And I haven't really gotten into, like, my views on religion on this podcast, right? And I've been raised very, very, very Christian my entire life. Private school, literally, without even getting into details, from the moment I was born, I started going to private school at 5, right, until I was 18. Between the ages of 5 and 18, there was only one day during the week that didn't have something to do with God, church, or learning about it, and that was Saturday. And it happened to be one of my favorite days of the week because every other day was completely filled with that, right? So learning about everything, it just confused me. So we view here in America or just in the Christian faith, heaven, perfection, this complete bliss. This is what we are trying to get to, the glory of God. We're trying to get to this, right? Now, if death is so terrifying and evil, we attribute it almost as something to run from, right? But the people who pass on are going into heaven, which is supposed to be this eternal, like, bliss and stuff. Like, why are we not celebrating people's lives? Have you ever walked into a wake before? It is, the air in the room is just so stale and depressing, and it sucks. Even though, like, we talk about, like, the pastor comes up there and he goes, and they will be with God soon enough, and they will be in his glory and perfection, and everybody is crying. Like, I understand, like, because I was crying when my cat died, right? But, like, some people will literally, like, grieve for years in an unhealthy way and then go and preach about this bliss, this heaven and stuff. And it's like, we should be, like, celebrating their lives, right? Right? Like, why the hell aren't we doing that? Like, I've heard a couple times, like, at college, like, some people have, like, said, oh, yeah, like, my great aunt died. And I'm like, oh, when's the funeral? And they're like, oh, we're throwing a party for them. And I'm like, that's fucking badass, right? So, like, if I go out, if somebody throws a wake or a funeral for me, I'm gonna like hire somebody to, like, sue them for me after I die, right? Because I will only accept a party. That's it. I will only accept a party with a lot of food and a lot of ice cream, celebrating my life and everybody's life who is still around. I think that's the only logical thing to do, you know? Because, like, then you think about it, and if they really do pass on to heaven, and people are like, oh, they're watching over us, and they're looking down on us, protecting us, and it's like, but if we're still, like, crying, don't you think that makes them sad? If they're watching over us, and they see us crying about how they're gone, don't you think that makes them sad too, right? Like, I had actually written down, like, practice what I preach, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I cried for a whole week because my friggin' cat died, you know, and I'm telling people over here to, like, you know, move on and, like, celebrate the life of someone who died, and I'm still in the middle of, like, grieving it, you know. I guess I do really need to practice what I preach, celebrate the little guy's life, right? I think we just need to do a better job at celebrating life when we're still here and when people are gone, you know? Like, what the hell are we doing? Why aren't we celebrating life more and the lives of people that have passed on, you know? Why can't we do them better justice? Like, why does it always have to be so sad? Why does it always have to be so friggin' sad on this planet, you know? I ask these questions, and I don't have any answers for that because I am just a mere human, right? So trying to accept these things that I've just said, or just acceptance in general, I've had to just tell myself, shit happens. I got to be strong, right? He would have wanted me to be strong. They would have wanted me to be strong. I got to smile, because that's what they would have wanted. They want me to have a good life still. I don't need to feel guilty that I'm still here and they're gone. That's messed up, right? So hopefully anything that I've said today can help people understand that, I did want to read a note that I had written today. I didn't write it today. I'm going to read it today. I think I wrote it 8 days ago. Hold on one sec. Sorry, I had to drink some water before I did that. So I'm going to read a little note. I think I'm going to put it in the Instagram post too, or tell my social media person to do that. So here it is. Everything is such a distraction to me right now. Whether I am doing it on purpose or not is irrelevant. The fact remains the same. I am distracted. From what I am feeling and thinking, I can deduce that no amount of sleep will help me forget this grief. I twiddle around with tasks and gadgets just to pass the time, work myself ragged, so by the chance I may cry, I will be too tired or dehydrated to do so. I let my own thoughts work my mind to death, so maybe I can start over tomorrow. Tomorrow will be different. Damn, I'm less alive today than I was yesterday. This numbness has slowed my life's perception to a crawl, almost stagnant. What was I running from again? I don't remember. Oh wait, there it is. Everything. The straw that broke the camel's back just happened to weigh a single ton. That's 1 ton too much for any sane individual's mind to bear. What is the use to even care? We frantically try and put the pieces of the puzzle back together again in hopes that we can see the same picture one more time. Too bad it's different this time. It'll never be the same again. And who is to blame? This godlike fate? But that false hope is simply fake, a dry old well that never had any real water to begin with. Just a hole filled with broken dreams, a broken soul. That is what that well is. It might as well be my own soul. Everything is so hollow, and the only meaning I ever find lies in my words, my thoughts. My feelings barely scratch the surface. They come in hot and then disappear. These words stay consistent, forever giving life to experience as a whole. And as a whole, I ask, am I truly distracted? Well, yes. But at least it's all in good faith. As long as I face what I'm running from with words, I'll circle back around to deal with the worst of it. It hurts a bit, and technically, I curse the hearse of a modern man and all the traditions that will one day burn up with it. I'm trying my hardest to celebrate your life, and I know damn well that I don't want to forever mourn over it. Yeah, so I wrote that. It's pretty messed up. I think it was good. I hope you liked it. In conclusion, though, this shit friggin' sucked, okay? I apologize again for the hiatus. I'm going to do my best to be a better host and personality for everybody moving forward. I appreciate all the love and support. A lot of people were asking me, yo, when's the next episode? People shooting me texts or people seeing me in person. They're like, yo, I'm all caught up, And it almost brought a tear because I'm like, damn, I got so much love around me. I think, like I said, I think we need to do a better job at celebrating life, These tears should be shed in joy, not in sadness, right? So I appreciate all the love and support from everyone. So stay up, stay fresh, and feel free.